The leadership's plan to deport over 4,000 people from the country. It's after the government initially welcomed the refugees who were trying to escape violence in their homeland. But as RT's Paul Aslia found out, they face further strife upon their return home.
The Sudanese are a cancer in our body. We will do everything to return them to their lands.
Strong words from a politician in the country built by those who survived the Holocaust.
Sudanese to Sudan. Sudanese to Sudan.
And even stronger words inciting racial hatred against African migrants. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has boasted loud that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And yet it's his own politicians who are calling for this.
We need to expel the infiltrators from the land of Israel, and we shouldn't be afraid to use that word.
Many of the so-called infiltrators have already been expelled once. Fleeing poverty, violence and authoritarian rule, some 60,000 of them have crossed illegally into Israel through the relatively porous desert border with Egypt. Israelis warn of an impending demographic and economic crisis.
These are people who experienced severe trauma in their native land. In Darfur, they saw their villages burned down. Eritreans who were slaves of a dictatorial regime, some were in torture camps in Sinai, and then a new struggle starts for them.
Israelis say most come seeking work rather than refuge. And when it comes to growing crime figures, the newcomers make convenient scapegoats. But the government cannot deport the migrants as they have a group protection. Those from Sudan and Eritrea, no matter what their circumstances, cannot be sent back because they face possible persecution. And so they stay, but without work permits and denied the most basic rights like shelter and food.
I feel very scary. The atmosphere that we have these days is really, really scary. We feel like very insecure. We feel like now and then there will be like acts of violence towards the refugees.
And there already have been apartments of African workers set alight and almost daily beatings. Far from dealing with the situation, Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced his intention to go ahead with building a detention center to house 10,000 Africans and to enforce a controversial law that will allow Israeli authorities to imprison illegal immigrants for up to 3 years without a trial.
They should look into the eyes of these Africans who fled violence and despair and think about what they're doing. To see how they're demonized, how they're called names. It's terrible. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed as an Israeli, as a Jew.
In recent months, street violence against the Africans has surged, all the more insidious because it seems to be getting the nod from above. Paul Aslia, RT, Tel Aviv.